welcome to another episode from Pivot in Progress. My name is Arjun and I'll be the host for today. So, today's topic is something that we have received a lot of queries about in the recent past, which is how do you navigate the current US job market? It is something that is on everybody's mind, whether you are a citizen already present in US looking for your next career move, or if you're an immigrant, you have been in US, or somebody who's just recently arrived in US as a student and looking for their first role. I think for everybody there are different types of challenges that they're trying to navigate and land the best role possible in the current market. And we have two really amazing speakers backstage with us. They will be coming and joining me in just a second. I will be adding them to the conversation now. All right. Welcome again, Shreya and Sarah. Thanks so much for joining me. How are you both doing?
Doing well today.
Doing
Thank
great
you.
as
Great.
well. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for taking time out for this. I know, we are all busy, but I think the topic that we have set up for today's discussion is something that is on a lot of people's mind right now. So, what we can do is maybe just quickly give a quick round of intros for each of us, and then we'll dive right into it. So, I can go first. I'm sure there are a few people joining us who don't know me. So, my name is Arjun. I'm the founder at Pivot. And what we do here is help mid career professionals with different types of inflection point transitions. We'll talk more about what that kind of entails, but I have experience working in both US and India. I used to work in HR consulting for about a decade at some of the largest firms in New York City. And then I started Pivot in 2020, primarily to make sure that people find one stop support system and resources to achieve their most ambitious career goals. And then I'll turn it over to Sarah first. Sarah, welcome again. And if you can just share a little bit about your journey and kind of what you do today, that would be really helpful.
Happy to. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Erdos. I'm based now in New York City. My background is in product management and data science. I started in product management at TED Talks before going to grad school in data science, where I realized that as a product manager, you really needed to have a superpower, and I wanted mine to be data. From there, I went into management consulting, where I worked primarily on product management and data heavy topics, which eventually led me to mostly AI enablement work with McKinsey. I was part of McKinsey for about 7.5 years, most recently with Quantum Black, which is their AI arm, and recently made the pivot to Google, where I'm helping their AI go-to-market team, focusing actually on helping consulting companies better leverage AI towards their use cases. So that's a little bit of my overview, always product and data at its core, but have
Mhm.
jumped around a little bit within that. And really nice to meet you all.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarah. And very interesting journey. I'm really excited to unpack this. I mean, Sarah, you and I have known each other for a while, and we have had a lot of conversations about different career topics. But I'm really, honestly, really thrilled to have you on board here and kind of just uncovering everything from your journey today, because I think it's going to add a lot of value for many, many people, given the kind of pivotal shifts you've made in your career from very diverse backgrounds. So thanks again. Shreya, you're a veteran at this. You've done this before, so I'll let you just go ahead and share your experience and background as well.
Thank you for sharing your journey, Sarah. Definitely impressive, and I'm super excited to hear more of your insights about the market as well, like everybody else is. Hi, everyone. I'm Shreya. I am the co-founder of the Super Coach. A little bit my journey. I have been in recruiting. I've been in recruiting with FANG companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Uber, TikTok. My overall idea of coming into coaching was wait, I know a lot on the other side of the market, what's happening with the ATS resume industry, but then a lot about how do I actually make sure everybody else also knows in terms of candidates, in terms of people who are looking for their next opportunity. And that's why the segue into coaching. When I came to US like 10 years ago, Arjun, and you know this, like I had like a very difficult time navigating that market and actually finding more people to just speak about transferable skills, to speak about, okay, what do I do in my next opportunity? So I think I took that responsibility of being that person, being that space where people can come and talk about their job search. So currently, what do I do is I work with people who are searching for their next opportunity. Doesn't matter if they're like fresh graduates or people who have like 25 plus years of experience and looking for a director position. We help them navigate this market with right guidance, right strategies, a lot of accountability, and then filling in that what do you say, like you have completely like a blank where what's happening in the market and you have no idea, so we help them fill that and then get their next opportunity. So I think I sit in the crossroads of finding your strength and positioning that in the market to get that best opportunity.
Amazing. Yeah. Um, and I think Shreya, we have talked about this before, but that is a big need of the hour today. Something that was prevalent earlier as well, but I think it's becoming more and more because of the kind of uncharted territories that many mid and senior career professionals are finding them in today's job market. Great, thank you both for sharing that. Let's get started. So, the topic is obviously navigating the US job market. The first thing, the biggest elephant in the room, is all these macro factors which have sort of upended the job market in the last couple of years, just since COVID, right? So first, people like about 5 6 years ago were just getting used to COVID, and then bam, we get hit with layoffs, we get hit with AI, we have now a very different kind of political and immigrant climate as well in the current global environment, not just US. And everybody is just trying to wrap their heads around this new change that's happening in different dimensions, right? Also, I'm sure we all have certain like industry expertise or domain expertise, but really what we have been seeing at Pivot is it's happening cross functionally across industries. It's not specific to one industry. We might tend to focus more on tech because it's more in media and headlines, but believe me, like we work with people from, let's say, retail, e-commerce, manufacturing, oil and gas. Everybody is kind of rethinking their careers today because of all these vast changes. So my first question, to Sarah, we'll start with you if that's okay, is what do you think, based on your recent experiences kind of doing all of these transitions, what do you think are these major factors that are currently impacting the job market the most? And how do people sort of have, prepare mental models? Like, how did you have any sort of mental models in terms of, okay, this is how I'm going to navigate these large scale changes that are happening broadly in the US market? Obviously, AI being one of the core things that you have integrated closely into your job. But apart from that, any other things that are impacting you or you see others impacting around you, how do you define them? How do you structure them? How do you navigate them?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, AI is obviously top of mind for me, given that's kind of the field I pivoted into. And I think AI is not unlike these other things that you mentioned they're influencing overall. And the first
Mhm.
thing is to understand kind of and be aware of what they are themselves so you can talk about them fluently. You can say, hey, look, I know that AI has really changed the role in these ways, ABC. This is how, with AI, these things are reimagined or different. My value prop is that I can understand the landscape of how these things have changed and also help kind of thread the needle to make sure I'm adding unique impact in a way that only I can from my vantage point. So I think
Mhm.
to kind of land that point, you first need an awareness of this does not mean you need to be vibe coding every weekend, but you need an awareness of what these catalysts are and their impact overall, um, and learn about them and be curious about them. So that
Yeah.
was one area I came in, is trying to say, like, look, I think the world's changed a little bit given this. Here's what I'm seeing. Recruiter or hiring manager, how are you seeing this show up in your work? My perspective is this, but how is it changing how you think about things? So
Yeah.
just understanding the landscape, situating yourself within it with awareness and curiosity is one way I approach that.
No, I think that's a very fundamental thing that I think one has to do, is just kind of like raise their awareness. Sarah, just a quick follow up question before we go to Shreya for her perspective. Um,
Mhm.
what have you found to be the best way to kind of gain the right information? Because there's just so much noise every day on AI, especially if you're on any social media platform, like TikTok, LinkedIn, Insta. I think everybody's just creating massive amount of repositories around AI content and like what to do to raise this awareness depending on the field that you're in, right? And there are content creators, there are media publishing firms, obviously a lot of magazine articles come out every day taking a new stance and something new. So it can become a little overwhelming for many people to kind of like parse through that information and just declutter. How have you been able to tackle it? Is it primarily based on just your on ground experience working at the firms that you mentioned, or is there something outside of that that you've been doing as well?
Well, I agree with you, Arjun. It's a mess. You can't keep up. It's changing so quickly, and there's a lot of people shouting, trying to be the loudest voice on what's important and why. I think for me, there was so much going on that I focused on learning the things that I was generally curious about. Like, how can this stuff
Mm.
actually impact my life? Not keeping up with the news, but like, how could incorporate it into things I'm doing, either in my
Right.
work or in my personal life? So, for one thing I did was it was kind of similar. It was kind of like, there's so much stuff out there. What is really important to me based on my goals? And then I
Mhm.
used like a very simple agent to create like a daily email digest of the news that matters based on that. So for
Mhm.
me, I was interested in understanding. Uh, this one is more job related now, but what
Yeah.
are the new partnerships or opportunities or trends that are happening within GSIs, global system integrators, that might be relevant for how AI fits into other stuff, right? Um,
Right.
and so I have a very simple daily digest of like, here's the stuff that's relevant for that specific goal or outcome that you're trying to do. Here's general news, which is overall Musk and Sam Altman are yelling in the courtroom about XYZ, and this is like overall context. And then it would follow up with 3 articles that might be interesting for those goals. So I think you're right to just be a consumer on Twitter or X, whatever, of everything that's coming in. It's
Right.
not only not effective, but it's exhausting. So taking a step back and saying, what do I actually want to learn? What is relevant to me within the noise? Only then can
Yeah.
you dig into what you actually want. Um, and that's with all of this. It's like, what do I care about? And then how can
Mhm.
I isolate that piece in a way that's driving towards an outcome? Having those outcomes defined is really important.
Yeah, I think that reminds me of kind of like first principle thinking. Just kind of like really boiling it down
Yes.
to what your goal is and what you're really trying to achieve through this particular exercise. No, thanks for sharing that, Sarah. I think you're absolutely right. I think out of everything that's happening in the world right now, AI is probably the biggest elephant in the room. But Shreya, my segue to that is there AI is definitely the biggest factor right now, but there are other factors at play in the job market, which I assume you have been also seeing in your work, helping mid and senior career professionals achieve their goals. So talk to me about what you're seeing play out as the most impactful on ground factors today, especially from, let's say, layoff perspective, the entire like immigration policy evolution that's happening across the world, especially in US, or anything else that you feel is really impacting the outcomes for large workforce populations.
Absolutely. No. So there are a couple of things that comes to my mind, Arjun. First would be how the demand and supply has changed in these years a lot, right? It's like there are a lot more candidates for that one role, and then also everybody is looking for the transfer or the transition from who they were before the layoff or what they can be now after the layoff. I've seen a lot of people and be like, I have 10 years of experience, but I'm okay taking anything which is even between 5 to 10 years of experience because either of visa or the financial stability that they're looking for. And that is creating a lot more traffic in that area system, in that space where there shouldn't have been 1,700 applications, right? That's one of the things where I feel the demand and supply is doing a lot of trick. And a lot of people who are actually one great fit for the role or somebody who can actually do that job better probably are not even reaching to the recruiters, not even reaching to the decision makers, because they either have to do a lot of referrals, they have to find an internal advocacy. Otherwise, there are no chances to find them within that ATS system if they are like 1700, 1800 applications. So they might be losing on those opportunities. Second thing would definitely be, you already spoke about immigration changes, right? And that is creating a lot of traffic, because now if I only have 60 days, I would just take up anything. I just want to be here, right? So maybe the compensation, maybe the right role, I wouldn't worry about it. I somehow would just want to be here because my whole life is here, my family is here, my home is here, my kids have school, right? So that is another where there's a difference between like passion and desperation when it comes to a timeline. I think people turn a little bit towards desperation just to find that role. Third, I would say is positioning, and then just tagging along to what Sarah said is like you need awareness, you need curiosity, and then you're building that profile for yourself, right? Um, then how do you position yourself? Like how is market viewing you? That is a third perspective that I would share. That's extremely important. You're doing the gap analysis. You're aware now. What do you need? Now you're building that and you're learning that. But then the third thing is how are you positioning yourself? How are people perceiving you? How are these makers looking at you? That is something also where one, as a professional, I'm not doing it on an everyday basis. If I'm not searching for a job, I'm not thinking what my LinkedIn profile, what my personal branding looks like. And second, I only start thinking about it when I start searching for a job or next opportunity, and then the market is already crowded, and then I could be overwhelmed if I'm on a timeline or I don't have a backup opportunity. So yeah, I think these are the factors. Uh, it's already a loaded market, but I think it's creating the chaos and the movement in the market that's not very helpful for everybody.
Yeah, no, I think very relevant points there. And the chaos that you're talking about, Shreya, one of the things that we've been noticing is that it's kind of like, I don't want to oversimplify it, but it sometimes feels like a tale of two cities to me, right? Like it's a little bit like there's this huge boom it's happening because of AI, and there's a significant amount of hiring that's happening there, and people are getting exorbitant packages, at very early stages as well. And then you have, a lot of mid-career professionals who are non-tech, sometimes even technical, but don't have AI specialization, and they're always feeling like they are at risk. So it's creating this sort of vacuum in the middle, but sort of this barbell shaped kind of a market where you have the haves and have nots, so to speak, right? So I just wanted to understand, like, if you are obviously somebody who is already aligned with AI and have been working with some good brands, like for example, Sarah has been able to astutely sort of pivot her career over a period of time and get to that position. But let's say you're not necessarily vying for the most in-demand roles today, like AI, right? How do you kind of navigate that situation today? Like, what are one or two things that, like, for example, you talked about positioning. How do I position myself strongly in a market where perhaps I'm only being asked for certain things which I don't have right now? How do I navigate that?
So two things comes to my mind right now. One is if you are prepping in the back, like Sarah was talking about, that she understood like what is that she needs, she has a clarity, this is my goal and this is where I want to go, and then she started learning and building more around it. So that's one way to go about it, that you're silently doing everything in the back end with your 9 to 5 or with the timeline that you have. That's one way to go about it. And then obviously talk about the positioning. You should have the network and the reach outs, where either your profile should speak for the profile should be very loud, and then
Mhm.
the recruiter or the hiring manager should be able to find it. That's one way. Or the second way is you should have somebody who's actually sharing that profile directly with the decision makers, right? So what am I trying to say is, one, you need somebody or something that's actually talking about you other than yourself. So either your profile, which is your personal branding, your social media, your vlogs, something should be speaking rather than you just going and be like, hey, I'm a great candidate, take me. There should be some authority, some credibility somewhere, right? Or
Right.
you should have some person, that means an hiring manager or an employee, who can advocate for you within the company or can take you to that hiring manager. Why is that important? Because again, anybody who's been in the decision maker seat, there are a lot of people there, And not that they're sitting to do that injustice, but then it's very unfair to ask somebody, a human, like, hey, can you look at all the 1700 applications and then find the right person? That's not the best use of their time. That's not the best use of the resources the organization has. So, one, be loud
Yeah.
in terms of positioning. Again, social media. I've gotten almost all my jobs through LinkedIn. I've never had a career, like a place where I was like, wait, I'm applying to 100 jobs and not getting anything back, right? Because the minute I got into my MBA, I realized that nobody knows I exist. How would they know? Like, I'm quietly doing things in the back end, and then I don't know how to bring all my transferable skills from India work of 10 years to this now what I'm doing, like refreshing, restarting, transitioning, pivoting my career, right?
Yeah.
So I was loud in the room. I learned it that way. I didn't know any
Mhm.
other way at that time, that I have to be loud. I need people. I need a profile that can advocate for me, and I need people that can advocate for me. So those are two very important things. You cannot right now just exist in silence
Yeah.
and expect somebody to come and find you. Um, because even if they want you as badly as you want that job, they won't find you in the crowd and the chaos that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I
No,
completely.
sorry, please continue. I think you were finishing your
I
thought.
was I was oh no, I was
Yes,
chiming
go ahead.
in
Go
and
ahead.
saying
Yeah,
I
please go ahead.
completely agree, especially about the importance of a network.
Mhm.
Every job I've gotten is because someone said like, "Oh yeah, Sarah would be great at that." And building that network only when you're looking for a job isn't how it works. It's
Right.
constantly having conversations with folks who you want to learn from. Again, coming with curiosity. It's hard to build a network right when you're trying to find a job. It should be like brushing your teeth, some hygiene to always be having conversations with people that you generally find interesting. And then who knows how, planting those seeds in 18 months, someone will be like, oh, you know what? I had that conversation with so and so. They might be a good fit. So never think about a network conversation to get your immediate next job. It's always about planting seeds, maintaining and growing that network so that folks advocate for you. There's so much noise without a referral. It's tough, right? So you can think about a couple different things you're doing in parallel. One ongoing thing should always be, let me have good conversations with people I find interesting and I'm curious about, and that will continue to pay dividends.
Yeah, I think both of you have highlighted probably one of the biggest factors that's dictating outcomes for many professionals in the current market. But I feel like it's such a learned skill to network. Like we're not born to network in the way that you have to. We're used to like making friends, and we're
Yes.
used to like putting our heads down and doing work. And a lot of people come from that philosophy of like, I'll let my work do the talking. Like I don't want to be the one who's kind of like bragging about it and showing everything that I do. But I feel like both of you, what you're saying is there's a fine line, because the job market today is a specific type, which is very unique, very crowded, very noisy, and you have to draw attention towards yourself in a strategic manner, um, by doing things consistently over a period of time, which cannot happen at the last minute when you're desperate. And a lot of it has to do with, I think, Sarah, which you really eloquently pointed out, is making long-term connections over multiple conversations, and seeing like which one organically just sticks, and you never know is going to land you the next role, as opposed to kind of blasting AI generated generic messages to a high volume of strangers on LinkedIn, saying like, "Hey, I got laid off from XYZ, and I think this role would be a good fit. Can you please help me?" So actually, I want to stay on this topic for a tad bit longer, since both of you brought it up, and it's a vital one. It's going to create a lot of impact for many people. Um, there's a lot of misconception around networking, right? Some of it you have already kind of demystified about the long term. But let's talk about the what. Like, what messaging should we be focusing on when we are networking, when we are reaching out, especially to people who may not be in our core network, right? Um, Shreya, I mean, we'll start with you on this one and then follow up with Sarah's thoughts.
Absolutely. One of my most favorite topics because, like Sarah was talking about, that if you're not networking long term, then it sounds very transactional. You cannot ask for a job or a referral the day you feel like, wait, now I'm ready and the world should be ready for me as well. At least that's what I tell my mentees, that do not expect that to be their priority just because it's your priority to find a job, right? And then we all think about why people are ghosting me, they don't look at the messaging and all. So the first thing that I would say is think about offering before asking anything. What are you offering in that whole process, right? It can be an ego boost. That means you're talking about the work that they have done. Second, it can be an engagement perspective. That means you can look at the content, or the commenting that they are engaging with, and then you can talk about that, right? So that sets up a credibility that you've kind of looked at their work. Third thing is a very good reminder that, hey, I thought about you. We had a conversation 100 million years ago, but I thought about you. I was having a conversation with somebody else, and one of your resources or one of your conversation came into mind, and I instantly thought of you, right? So keep it warm, make it more intentional than just transactional, would be like my biggest piece. Can AI help in those templates? Yes, 100%. Like all of us have been using AI for something, but do not forget there's still a human reading it. So you get to give some human touch to it. You get to give um, some similarity that the other person actually connect with it. One of the biggest things that I tell everybody, like especially my mentees, is like, if the person reading it feels the 30 minutes or the 5 seconds of reading that message is not worth their time, they have no value in it, they probably wouldn't read it. They probably wouldn't reply to that, right? And that's extremely important. When I'm reading a message, there should be something in it for me also. Now, does it sound selfish? Yes. As humans are we? Yes, right? And if you're trying to hook somebody faster, you got to do it. Now, I'm not saying that's all of us. I'm saying that 80% of us who need that hook to stay to that message and to reply to this message, 20% of us are still kind and would still reply even if it's a transactional message.
Mhm.
Another thing is, that I get this question a lot and I want to address it, is like, how do I keep this conversation going? I spoke with somebody, now I don't know what else to say. I had a conversation with them, they're open for referral. Now I don't know what to say. I For a month I haven't spoken with them. Couple of things. One, you can send them a good article, a good resource, a good um, information that you all spoke about. Like if you're talking about AI, if you're talking about product management, if you're talking about PMM, if you're talking about Anthropic, and if you see an article that you're like, hey, Sarah, we spoke about AI, and then I love what you were doing, and I'm sharing this with you, right? Instantly thought of you. Second thing could be, like I was saying earlier, that if you've had a conversation with somebody that reminded you of Sarah, and then be like, hey, Sarah, this reminded me of you. I just wanted to, extend my gratitude to you that your conversation has been really helping me with other conversations, right? Third is, if they suggested a resource, if they suggested something that you should be doing, you check in back with them and be like, hey, I did this. I really
Mhm.
appreciate that you shared that. And this has been super helpful. So Sarah doesn't feel the next time when I come in for help and be like, dude, this girl is only going to collect information and not going to do anything about it, right? She should feel that her time was valued, that conversation was valued, even if it was super transactional to begin with.
Mhm.
So the biggest piece would be, remember they're still a human, and they would be very, very human to you if you would be human to them. Like I get a lot of heat by, like when I say this, publicly, and people are like, oh my god, in this world you still talk about being human, and I want to, because when I
Yeah.
reply like 50s of these DMs every day, I know which ones I'm replying to and which ones I'm absolutely be like, no, dude, that is a wrong name. Somebody called
Yeah.
me Malika today in my DMs, and I was like, who is she?
Yeah. It's a
And then I
copy paste
literally,
happening across
yeah, and I
multiple.
literally,
Yeah.
absolutely, and I
Yeah.
literally said that I hope Malika and you get to connect, because I don't want to be rude and I understand it's a template, but I wish you would have checked. But I also understand it's the chaos that's getting to them.
Yes. No, that is very well said, Shreya. I think that is, if anything, like out of everything we have discussed so far, there's one thing I would definitely want people to leave with this takeaway. And I think, Sarah, I would love to hear your take on this as well. Like, um, if you can share maybe certain examples yourself that you have utilized in your journey to create more organic and sort of two-way streets of networking where you have not just, like Shreya was saying, extracted value but also provided value. Can you share certain examples from your journey as well?
100%. I just 100% agree with what was said. I think in this world, because of AI, it's so refreshing to have a shorter, more informal, but pointed thing to say when following up. The amount of
Mhm.
time it takes to say, "Hey, I thought of you when I read this article. It reminded me of something we discussed 6 weeks ago, even recently. Hope all is well." You can also just plant seeds by, reminding folks like, "I'm here and I'm still thinking about that time that you gave me. It's still giving me benefit." Like that can be
Mhm.
there too. At McKinsey, it's really weird. You don't have a boss, you have a network of sponsors and mentors that you continue to work with and create new business for the firm. And the
Mhm.
way you do that is by networking internally. And so I think you're exactly right, Arjun. It's not, it's definitely a learned skill. It was something that was very uncomfortable for me in the beginning because,
Mhm.
as you said, I'm someone who does good work, and then the people who see that will pull me with them. But it became
Mhm.
too big a place, or transferring companies or transferring countries. That doesn't work anymore. Um,
Yeah.
with McKinsey, I did a 1 year rotation in the Berlin office, and all of a sudden, nobody knew me. And so, networking there became essential to ensure that I had client work to fill the days. And uh, I'm trying to answer your question with specific examples. In that world, um, people always need help with proposals or with specific articles or client outreach. So meeting up and saying, "Hey, I'm interested in what you're doing. I saw you did XYZ. One way I could help is taking a first pass at this thing that you're bringing to our shared client." Um,
Yeah.
People always love saying, like, "Great, you can help me with that." I understand why networking, not within a company, but on LinkedIn or maybe with folks that you don't know, it's a little bit different. When I returned from Berlin, I was actively trying to leave my job. Arjun, I think we had dinner around this time. I was like, "I got
Yes.
to get out of here."
Yes. Yes.
This was about like 18 months ago. And during that
Mhm.
time, I started networking in earnest. And the way I started was by talking to, honestly, my friends and being like, "Hey, who do you know that I should talk to?" I talked to
Yeah.
Arjun, talked to your wife Sam, be like, "Who should I talk to?" And you guys were like, "Oh, you should talk to so and so. They also are related to that." And with that
Mhm.
warm intro, it was so much easier to reach out and have that conversation. And those
Sarah,
people
sorry to
would often,
interject, but you're a great
yeah,
connector yourself. Like you're a good super connector because I know sometimes what
yeah,
happens is like you reach out asking for help, but instead you realize the other person actually could benefit from some connection that I have, and instead of you
exactly,
extracting, you end up providing them a connection.
exactly.
That's happened with you. I remember on multiple times you've connected me, my friends, family.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like give and take. But yeah, please continue.
I agree. It's if, especially if you're meeting someone with a warm connection, you can say, "Hey, Arjun recommended we talk. Sounds like we share views on a couple similar things, and would love if you have other people I could talk to." And that way, even like 3 connections down the road, maybe you don't know the connector anymore or didn't initially, but having that kind of, you know daisy chain of getting to know people is helpful. And of course, always saying, like, "Actually, who you should talk to is so and so. Like, let me connect you with a
Right.
quick email." Um,
Yeah.
and I only mention this because it was in that kind of s- time where I was really trying to talk to as many people as I could, hiring, not hiring, just getting to know what was up with other people, what was on their minds during transitions. That
Yeah.
18 months later, there was a connection that got me my Google job. So it really is about planting seeds, and then they say, "You should talk to Sarah. I talked to her a while ago," and getting the referral in a way that matters. It takes a
Yes.
while.
I mean, I will just add a point here. I get referrals for Pivot, where people are referring us because they heard about me like 5 years ago when I started. And, we underestimate people's two things, their memories and their ability or their willingness to help others. Because if you can remember something from like 5 years ago, you saw something about pivot, and then suddenly you found some family member who's trying to transition to a new role, um, and you're recommending pivot to them, it shows that people genuinely want to help, but you need to make their lives easier to be able to help you by providing easy recall, or doing the things that both of you are sharing. So appreciate all of those insights. I think they will really go a long way because they are counterintuitive. Most people are not born with networking skills, and it is a learned skill. So I think you also have to experiment a little bit. So good to see what has worked for both of you, and share how you have also helped many of your clients. um, I want to take a second and just acknowledge that I know the chat is blowing up. There are a lot of people who are sharing great insights as well as questions. We will be taking them up in just a bit. So please bear with us. We are going to discuss a few more, I would say, more commonly asked questions. Get both Shreya and Sarah's input, and then we'll quickly turn our attention to all of the questions that all of you are asking. So Daniela, Divya, Rakhi, Abhishek, all of you, thank you so much. Please stay with us, and we'll get to your questions very soon. The next thing that I want to cover, and this is something that I think both of you have indirectly already mentioned, but I want to kind of get more head on information related to this, is positioning, right? So both of you have talked about this, that, Sarah, you talked about like when you were thinking about how to leverage AI for your goals, you kind of crafted a specific focus area for yourself, and then you kind of just focused on that information gathering, talking to people about it, sharing articles, networking around that. Maybe that became your positioning or something else. Shreya, you've frequently mentioned positioning as something that differentiates you and helps you stand out in a crowded market. Can we just do something basic? Can we start by defining what positioning really means from a job market perspective? And then maybe take it a little forward and talk about maybe a couple of examples of how positioning has helped people and different types of premium roles. Sarah, we can actually, sorry, Shreya, we'll start with you on this one, then move to Sarah. Yeah.
I was so happy for a second. But no.
Putting you on the spot.
I was gonna learn. I was gonna throw it over the fence. So
Okay, so I think we're talking about positioning. I'll make it easier first, and then we'll double click on it. I think it's who you are, what can you do, and how would you do it. If people can remember any one of these things through the conversation, you've hooked them. So what we were talking about is, I like calling it like take brain space. When something stays in the brain, it stays for a little longer, right? It stays in our memory, it stays there for a reason, it stays there like data. So take that brain space. Now, how could you take that brain space? You're talking about something, who you are, what can you do, and then how would you do it. But all these three things should be related to what they are looking for, right? That means either in terms of challenges, either in terms of the kind of projects that you have done, or in terms of who you are as an individual, what are your non technical skills, the cultural fit that we talk about, right? All of these things would somewhere bring them back to you and be like, wait, I know somebody like that who can do projects like this, or I did speak with somebody like that who have done things like that in a networking event. They need to remember you with something. That's one positioning that we talk about. Now, we obviously are talking about when somebody remembers you. When I talk about positioning, I just talk about even if they've not spoken with you, would they know who you are? And they should be able to in this market, because not everybody has the luxury to go and speak with an interviewer or a decision maker, right? Look at the market, not everybody has that approachability, or again, they don't have that network or that connection, or they don't know what path to walk to actually reach to that decision maker, which seems very impossible right now. Every time I hear like a mentee say that, if you can just connect me with somebody, and I was like, I can, but then you need to do a lot of due diligence and making sure they remember you. That is the bigger piece. I can connect you with 100 people, but remembering is the bigger part, right? And that's where positioning comes in the picture. How can you position when you meet with these people? These are the three things. You need extreme clarity of who you are, what do you offer, and how would you do that. That would actually differentiate. That would actually put you in a different bucket than everybody else that these people are meeting. That's one. Second, now
Mhm.
if you don't have the privilege to meet somebody, which is okay, or you don't have that opportunity to meet somebody, how do you share that on social medias, right? Now when I say social medias, I only think about LinkedIn and Twitter right now, okay, like LinkedIn and X. One, everything that you're writing in terms of content or in terms of comments, people can actually read that. That's a very good way to invite people to your profile, honestly. And people actually think that, oh my god, I've been commenting for 100 years, nobody's reached out. See the impressions increasing on that comment, see the impressions increasing on the content. When I started, probably 5 people were liking it. Right now I have like 138,000 people reading, writing, following, whatever that looks like, right? So it
Wow.
obviously takes that. And like Sarah was talking about, she got that connection and that referral after 18 months. That helps. A lot of the things that we're talking about is compounding effect. People leave it in the very first or the second week and forget that consistency actually pays, right? So when you're thinking about positioning, it's the consistent positioning that you're doing. Can you pivot in between? Can you change? Yes. Can you tweak? 100% yes. You should be able to own that voice that you're becoming right now, right? But there should be something on that social media. That means if I land on your profile today, Arjun, I know who you are. What are you going to do? When I was looking at Sarah's profile before we jumped into this call, I know what she was doing, right? A little bit from her about section, from her experiences, where is she working, what capability does she have in terms of skill set, right? Recommendation is a great place to start. Ask for those recommendations because that creates positioning. So whenever you think about positioning, one, think about from an online perspective, think about from an offline perspective, and then see how can you work towards both. Because your online perspective, your online positioning would actually give you a lot of offline positioning also. Because then when you go to a networking event and people are clicking on your profile and be like, oh, this is what Shreya does,
Mhm.
before, if they want to stalk me. And then
Yeah.
after, when I would send that, hey, I met you in this networking event, they can easily avoid that message, ignore this message if they do not find anything interesting on my profile. And they're allowed to do that, right? So
Yeah.
positioning is probably how do you hook them and how do you sit in their brain for a little longer.
Yeah. No, I think thanks for highlighting the online part. And I'll just take a second to dwell on that before turning over to Sarah, because we get sometimes this pushback, especially from mid and senior professionals who are not like sort of these native social media users, right? We are all on social at some point, but it's mostly, I would say, Gen Z, Gen Alpha now, I mean, kind of taking it over. So for a lot of people, it's an uncomfortable thing to do, to put themselves front and center on social media, create content, keep up with that on a day-to-day basis. And I get this pushback now a lot of times, like the new CEO of Apple, for example, doesn't have a proper LinkedIn profile, like doesn't even highlight his experience properly. And people are like, if I can become the CEO of Apple without having a LinkedIn profile, like why the heck are you telling me to create content on LinkedIn? um, and I just want to like answer that, because see, you can definitely get a good role without creating content or without having strong online positioning. You can. But in the kind of job market that we are in today, based on at least what my experiences, and it sounds like Shreya yours as well, you maximize your chances by having more credible online visibility, which is consistent and built over a period of time in a meaningful manner, where you're not just talking about yourself, but more so about your learnings and experiences, and sharing them with people in the hope that it would add some value to others who are reading that. I think if you go in with that intent, and then let compounding do its job, that's when you start to see some dividends over a period of time. But this is a bit of a misconception that people feel, oh, I can be X of Y without having a LinkedIn profile. So why the heck? You can, sure. But do you want to maximize your chances? If so, perhaps this is something you should think about.
I
Um,
definitely want to add something there that um, having an online positioning or taking efforts there does not mean that you're stopping the offline one, right? Just because we are trying to maximize the chances that you're talking about. And second, it also gives a lot more clarity, Arjun. If I'm actually
mhm.
building my profile online, I have a lot more clarity of what I want to write. Wait, I don't want to write it. This is not what I even do anymore, right? So it prepares you for that offline connection also when somebody says that, hey, what do you do? And then you're so confused because you're talking about your day to day rather than actually
Yeah.
giving them that concise idea, right? So the
So true. Yeah.
building that profile, getting that clarity is also extremely important, so that you can take more brain space, get that hook faster when you go for the offline. And I want to double click on that senior leadership part that you said. Yes, you don't have to do it. Honestly, you don't. But if you're great in networking offline, then you don't have to worry about it. But looking at where our market is right now with crazy 9 to 5, and then with our 5 to 9 after that filled with like family time, self health, and everything else time, we don't have a lot of time networking. Like Sarah was mentioning earlier, we should not think about networking right when we're looking for the job, right? So that
Right.
online presence is kind of auto mode of networking when you're actually not networking. When you
Yeah.
don't have to intentionally reach out to anybody, but you're just creating content and you're commenting, that's your auto mode of like doing networking. So whenever you're ready, you can double click on that and start the engine and go for it. And then
Absolutely.
you can always keep a ghostwriter. If you're in the senior leadership space, you should be able to keep a ghostwriter and help them with your profile. Let them help you with your
Absolutely.
profile.
No, very true. And with that, Sarah, we'll get your thoughts on positioning as well. I think it sounds like you must have done some deep thinking around that, or been able to crack at it in some form or fashion. Because to go from TED to McKinsey and then to Google, I mean, you can't just happen to do it just serendipitously. There has to be some thought behind it. So please,
For
please
sure.
share. Yeah.
I'm not sure I have a ton to add. I think it was very well said, but I can share my personal positioning in some of that, which Arjun, as we said, has always been network based. So it's something I've really cultivated and brought along, and can't underscore enough that I think just being yourself and friendly can help so much more than blasting out a lot or applying
Yeah.
to the certain thing in the right way. But at McKinsey in particular, because of the nature of the work, you are required to have a one pager for your value prop. And
Mhm.
doing that exercise quarterly is really hard, because you have to think about what changed and how you want to position yourself different based on what's happening in the market, what's happening in the world, what's happening with your network. But I agree, it's such a helpful exercise to be forced to write some of this stuff down. So if you haven't already, and I'm sure if y'all are on this call, you've already put some thought into this, but I think it's not enough to just kind of like think about your positioning. Like, really write down your secret sauce and what you're interested in.
Mhm.
And for me, my value proposition at McKinsey most recently was, I was rewiring clients to build efficient, scalable, AI-enabled products and digital organizations in the transportation sector. And then within that, I would highlight one superpower or thing that I do well that's relevant to what that person is also working on. So when I was talking to very senior leaders, I would say, within that, as I'm thinking about helping clients build scalable products, the thing I really love doing is problem solving to build consensus on the hardest problems. I think stakeholder management can't be, yeah,
Mhm.
like, that's really necessary if I was talking to a senior leader. If I was talking to an architect, I might be like, I rewire clients to build efficient, scalable AI products, and I'm known for building the thing right. I develop digital strategies and product that can connect technical roadmaps to business outcomes, and that's what we can partner on. And if I was talking to someone who was maybe another a designer or a developer, I would say, I rewire clients to build efficient, scalable AI-enabled products, and I don't just build the thing right, but I build the right thing. I design, launch, and scale digital organizations that can like really leverage those best in practice operating models to build what you need. So I think what was helpful for me in terms of positioning is to have a couple go-to things that I had written down with a foundational building block, and then maybe a couple different stories within that that really
Yeah.
highlight your interest and superpowers that you can then
Mhm.
kind of mold and craft based on who you're speaking to. And by the way, you could ask feedback on that. You can say, I'm trying to position myself as someone who's doing XYZ. Like, how do you,
Mhm.
like, help me craft my story? I think people love being part of helping shape your narrative. That's
Mhm.
something that people like to hear, especially in this. It's not just this is who I am, but rather, hey, I'm in this new AI world. I'm trying to make sure my positioning is responding appropriately to what's going
Right.
on. How have you seen people be successful in this? This is what I'm thinking, but like, talk to me about this. Um, yeah, bring people into positioning as well, and take their cues.
I love that. It's so refreshing to hear that, because a lot of times people find job search and, doing all of these nitty gritty things as kind of like a siloed struggle exercise on their own. And it gets stressful, when you're just doing it on your own. And I think
Yeah.
inviting, not just, I would say definitely like, see, I've built a platform around helping people. Shreya is, super coach. There are obviously these formalized support systems out there which are very helpful, and I'm biased, but I do see a lot of value in them. But I think Sarah does add a lot of good points that they could be, your friends or colleagues who could also partake in that process and add a ton of value if they have a good understanding about your role and industry. The only word of caution I would have is like if somebody doesn't really know much about what you do and they know you, but they don't know what the industry is about, they could sometimes give ill advice, which may harm you. And I've seen that personally happen in many other people's careers. So I would just steer a little clear from that. But yeah, definitely colleagues and other experts in your industry, definitely invite them in. Sarah, I just wanted to ask one more thing. Like when you talk about like molding your positioning, so you talked about the fundamental block, and then you had two, three add-ons, bolt-ons on top of it, which is great. Love that. When you talk about molding, depending on who you're speaking with, what does that entail? Like, what is that exactly? Uh, like, how does that happen, and how does it land differently for different people?
Great question. I think it takes a little research as well.
Hmm.
Before speaking to anyone, do your homework to understand what motivates them and what they might care about and how you might be able to help them in the conversation too. So, have your foundational things that you are bringing, your value prop that you've thought about, but knowing what they care about can help highlight the parts of your story that are most relevant that you can co-create together. So part of it, I think, is doing your homework ahead of time to make sure that you
Hmm.
can kind of land that point. Um, and the second piece is ideally you have something in common. Like you probably have
Hmm.
something in common with everyone. So going into a conversation and being like, hey, I saw we both know so and so, even if you don't know that person very well, or hey, I saw we both went to NYU way back in the day, or I don't know. I think there can be just a personal hook that
Hmm.
can really help with that as well.
No,
Just
fair,
as
fair.
Shreya was saying, like the human aspect cannot be overstated, especially in this world of AI. I tend to be a little more informal in my networking. I think that that's um, ultimately been helpful for me. That you come to these conversations with a peer like mindset, and then it's easier to not have it feel transactional because it's like we are peers. We are both helping each other out, and we are eye to eye. If it's
Mhm.
always, I'm asking for help or I'm asking for something specific, it's much harder, I think, to be authentic and share what's really on your mind. But if you're networking not for an immediate job, but for really building a relationship, coming in with a peer like mindset and doing your homework are two things that I think are really helpful.
I really can't underscore enough. I think both what Shreya and Sarah are saying around when you're molding your profile or tailoring it. A lot of times, again, I feel like AI has taken the center stage, where a lot of people are just using different AI tools to kind of almost mechanically do keyword optimization and keyword stuffing. And yes, it does work sometimes for ATS optimization and all those things. But I think where we see the best outcomes, and there's proof in concept based on both what Sarah and Shreya are saying, you can't expect above average outcomes by doing something that 90% of the market is doing. Right, so you have to do the more intentional, differentiated things like the ones that are being pointed out in this conversation. With that, I want to go into our chat and take some of the questions that have come up. There are a ton of them. I really hope we can take as many as possible, but let's get started. So first, I think is just a comment from Rocky. Rocky, thanks for sharing that you're hiring for full-time roles in US. Please reach out to Rocky in case there are good fit openings. Next one is from Daniela, and this is a very good question. I'll show it up here on the screen. So the question is, why do we need to speak with AI for screening after applying in order to get to a recruiter? Happened to me the other day. I never spoke with AI before and was shocking about so many barriers for job seekers instead of making the process of hiring more effective and productive for everybody. I think that is a factor. That is a huge factor that's being seen in the market today, that AI again is not just taking center stage from a skill acquisition perspective, but when you're going through the hiring process itself, AI can be the first screening round or be used to kind of filter out all the resumes. So there are different ways that it's happening. Shreya, as a recruiter, as a coach, how do you guide people on this particular challenge, which might be very new for many, many people?
So yes, I want to address first is like why so many barriers, because again, there's so many people in there. So they're trying to do a pre-qualifier.
Shreya, are you there? Can you hear me? Okay, I thought it was just me, but I see Sarah, you're there.
Yes, I think she
Okay.
maybe. Yeah.
There she is. I think she's back.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened. Sorry. Um, I was saying that one, they're trying to like pre-qualify so they can do one justice to like so many applications that they see rather than like just rejecting it. And second, it's easier to understand rather than like just going through the ATS system, because Arjun, you were just talking about it now. It's all stuffed with the keywords, right? So now everybody comes in that filter, but now you don't know out of those 200 applications who are these people that you should actually be having a screening call, right? So one, to utilize the resources better, the time of a recruiter of the whole team, but then also second, to give candidates more opportunities so that everybody gets a chance to speak to the team even before they're automatically rejected because of, like, let's say, overstuffing of the keyword or not having enough keywords. Now, how do I prep people for it or suggest them to be prepped for it? Would be first, and the biggest thing is like, I give this a lot. Speak to yourself, or like speak with a mirror. You will have an understanding of when there is no human interaction, when there's no human expression, how would you actually take that into consideration, right? So I would probably say like practice speaking with yourself or to yourself or to the mirror. That actually helps in that AI practice. That's one. Second, there are a lot of tools available where I think the first five or first three interviews are absolutely free, and you should be able to try that. Because one, AI actually obviously is a lot different than a human, right? Because if you pause for more than 3 seconds, AI would think that wait, you're done. Like that AI interview tool would think that wait, you're done, and then they would jump to the next question. So how long of a pause you could be taking? You should definitely be practicing that with either an AI tool or with another human, so that you have an idea of what you're getting into. But what they're trying to do, Danielle, I think it's they're trying to balance the kind of applications that they have to the opportunities that they can give to the candidate to at least start interviewing. And that's why we had earlier the assessment, also the OAs that we call the online assessments. The reason of the online assessment was also pre-qualifying them even before they get to a screening call or they get to a hiring manager round. We just should know that they are qualified before we start applying resources to them, because in the back end it doesn't look like, but there's a scheduler, there's a sources, there's a recruiter, there's a recruiting manager. All of them are invested alongside obviously with the hiring team. They're all invested in this one role, so they want to make sure they're making the best use of those resources.
Great.
And
Yes, Sarah, please go
well,
ahead.
I'm in this world where everyone is being told to use AI for something. I'm very
Mhm.
curious to see how many of these tools persist, if they are really valuable towards business outcomes, towards actually finding the right candidates. I think we really are in this world of experimentation where some of these tools are super valuable for the reasons that were shared, and some of them might not be. And I think they're going to pitter out. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the market shifts a little bit based on kind of where they are. So I hope don't be discouraged because I don't think these barriers will be there always, and companies are experimenting themselves on what's actually helpful towards their hiring outcomes.
Got it. Shreya, I see that I think you might need to
I
drop
got to
off.
draw. Yes,
Got
I
thank
it.
might
you.
as well.
Okay. Do we have time for just one more question, Sarah, or do you have to drop off as well right now?
I can do one more question.
We'll do a
Okay,
quick one. But Shreya, thank you so
thank
much for
you.
joining, and we'll catch up again
Thank you.
soon.
It was great to
Thanks.
speak to you, Sarah. Bye. Thanks, Arjun. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Okay.
Sarah, really appreciate the time. So just quickly, I think there's one question around primarily again networking, which is uh, I'll just share it quickly. So I've been trying to network as well, and even with referrals, I'm still not getting invited for interviews, even though I'm a 99% match for the job. I'm sure, I mean, I don't know if you had been actively applying to jobs, Sarah, but did you come across these kind of situations where you felt like you were a good fit but did not hear back, even with, let's say, networking and
Totally.
referrals? Yeah.
Totally. I would just say do not be discouraged because so much of getting an interview is timing, and you
Hmm.
have no idea what's going on the back end. I'll share that the role that I eventually took at Google is not one that I would have been on my radar to apply to myself. Someone reached
Hmm.
out to me and said, "We think you'd be a good fit for this. Like your name came up. Like you should apply to this." And that role was up the entire time I was having these conversations. And I knew that they were not interviewing anyone else because I was having this kind of conversation in the background and interviewing. I think there's a lot of stuff that's posted online that something is happening in the back end that you just don't have visibility into.
Hmm.
Another job I saw is still up that I got an offer for in March. And, my process was 6 weeks. I said no,
Hmm.
sorry. And then they, kept going. So I think so much of this is timing. And yeah, I would just say don't be discouraged because you are a great fit for that role. Um, and they might have something going on for why they're not getting back to you, even with a referral. Um, and I applied to a ton of jobs that I did not hear back from at all with referrals. So it's I don't want to say it's purely a numbers game because I don't believe in like a spray and pray mentality. Like being really thoughtful and focused is important, but
Right.
certainly you need to keep going and continue to get your name out there. Um, Even if you're the perfect fit, you have no idea what's happening kind of under the hood and who they're talking
Hmm.
to behind the scenes or where they are in the process. Um,
Yeah.
Not really a
I mean, there's so
networking
many times
answer,
that
but
roles.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I think
yeah,
the first thing that you said, don't be discouraged. I think that's important because this is kind of like a probabilistic outcome. It's not a definitive outcome that you just get a referral and certainly you will get an interview and get the job. But it does improve your chances of hearing back because now there's somebody in addition to your application who's sort of vouching for you inside that company. So I think the more you do it, the higher the chances, but it doesn't guarantee any outcome. So I still, I mean, agree with you and see a lot of value in people networking, getting referrals, even if they haven't worked out so far. That doesn't mean they will not work out ever. You just, have to keep doing it with the intention that I think Sarah you pointed out.
yeah.
Any final thoughts, Sarah?
No, just another quick example on that.
Yeah.
We were hiring at somewhere else I was for a long time, but we were kind of hoping that this internal person would switch over. And it was a posting online forever, but we were kind of like slow rolling it because of that happening
Mm,
behind the scenes. So just again, if you're perfect for a job and don't hear back, it doesn't mean you're not perfect for that job. Like don't be
right.
discouraged. There's could be all sorts of things you're not seeing why the timing isn't right. That has nothing to do with you being excellent. So
Yeah.
keep keep
And sometimes
doing
jobs
it.
just are
Yeah.
put they are put on hold because budgets and annual
Yeah.
operating plans change all the time. So companies are shutting down business verticals without much knowledge of the people working in those verticals. So the vertical might have put out a job posting, but the vertical shut down, or they had a sort of funding crunch or something. So there could be multiple reasons, definitely. um,
Mhm.
Great. I think there are a ton more questions, but I think we have run out of time. So what I will do at this stage, just appreciate Sarah and Shreya for sharing all their wealth of experience and insights. I think it was tremendously helpful. A lot of practical solutions that were shared. So, folks, if you are in the market looking for any sort of support on your transition, do check out Pivot. And you do have folks like Shreya, like Sarah, who are part of our broader mentor network in case you're looking for more personalized feedback and guidance on how you can achieve your goals. Please do check it out. But yeah, apart from that, thank you again for joining and sharing ton of questions, keeping the chat alive. And I hope we can stay connected. And I wish you the best in your career journey. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.